Thank you, Glenn, for that great overview. My name is Patricia Livy Tevet, and I'm a board member of the MSA Coalition. My husband, Joel, MSA, and I remember trying to juggle the medical care, going to the doctors and figuring out help at home and things like that, while also trying to navigate these issues about health insurance, life insurance. Joel, leaving work much earlier at age 55 than we had planned, applying for Social Security disability. So I know that these issues are difficult and sort of another layer that you have to deal with, unfortunately, when you're dealing with MSA. So hopefully today you have a chance to, have some questions answered, or at least have an idea of where to look and where to start on some of these issues. So thank you, Glenn, so much for being here and sharing your expertise with us. Please put questions in the chat. I only see a comment so far, so I have a few questions to get us going, but we'd love to answer whatever questions you have. Glenn can't give, very specific legal advice, but if you have general questions, and even if you think it's a dumb question, there are no dumb questions here. So please go ahead and ask. There is a comment about the VA having many programs that offer, benefits for things like walkers and wheelchairs, ramps, home modifications for the handicapped. Glenn, is there anything, regarding VA benefits that you recommend or, have dealt with?
Unfortunately, that's a specialty that we do not deal with. I have very little knowledge about the VA benefits.
Okay.
There are attorneys who do focus and specialize in that. They're relatively easy to find. The internet is a wonderful tool. Just plug in VA attorney and you'll find somebody in your area.
Okay. And that was one of my questions, is if you recommended people find an attorney for certain things like denial of long-term disability, things like that. Other than Googling, are there ways that you recommend people could find attorneys that specialize in Social Security disability or ERISA, like you talked about, anything like that?
Well, most people will have a local bar in their area, legal bar, not the other kind. And they're often a good source, but actually I think Googling is the best source if you put in the right information. Be specific about, I'm looking for a Social Security lawyer, or if you get your benefits through your employer and it's governed by ERISA, put in ERISA lawyer. Okay. This is a day of specialization, and you don't want just any lawyer. You want a lawyer who does the kind of work that you need. So,
okay, great
questions. Yeah.
So we do have a couple of questions. First of all, how much does long-term care insurance typically cost, and when should someone try to get long-term care insurance?
Well, long-term care insurance is typically provided by the employer. The vast majority of times, it's an employee benefit that is not paid for directly by the employee. It comes with your employment. Sometimes it's a voluntary program that is offered to employees and can be paid for, but you have to do it the first time it's offered. If you don't do it then, and you want to do it at a later time, unless they have open enrollment, which is relatively rare for long-term disability, you'll have to show what's called evidence of insurability. And unfortunately, if someone has MSA, they're not going to be able to apply and get the insurance after diagnosis. Long-term disability is a term of art that goes with employee benefits. There's also individual disability, which can be very expensive. It could be $1,000 or more a month, depending on how much coverage you have. It's something typically that is only purchased by people with very high incomes.
Okay. And I think, what about long-term care insurance? That's a different type, right?
It's a completely different animal. Long-term care insurance is intended to provide either care in your home or in a facility for folks who cannot physically care for themselves, whether it be because they are physically incapacitated and can't perform what are called the activities of daily living, using the bathroom, bathing, feeding themselves, dressing, and walking. Or alternatively, if somebody has cognitive issues with typically Alzheimer's or dementia. Once again, that's something that you should be purchased usually no later than when you're 65. The younger you are, the cheaper it is, but typically you don't use it until you're into your late 70s or 80s. Someone with MSA, of course, would use it, but given that it's a relatively rare disease, it's unusual. But it's a great thing to have, but it can be expensive.
Can you get long-term care insurance after you've been diagnosed?
No.
Okay.
It's like buying home insurance while your house is on fire. No one will sell it to you.
Okay. Another question is someone is asking again about the type of life insurance that doesn't ask medical questions. Could you just briefly mention that again? The type of life insurance you said you could get that's guaranteed without having to go through a medical review.
Yes. It's not inexpensive, and it doesn't typically provide a great amount of coverage. It's kind of a strange product in that it only pays if you live for more than 2 years after you apply. I think the insurance company's theory is that if someone is truly terminal, they probably won't live that long, and they give the premiums back. You can find out about it by talking to your local insurance agent or going online and just typing in guaranteed life insurance. Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I deal with a lot. We typically deal more with somebody who purchases life insurance, dies within the first 2 years, and the insurance company contests that they weren't completely honest in the application process. For the most part, if you purchase life insurance and you live for more than 2 years, there are almost no ways that an insurance company can deny paying the benefit if it's basic life insurance.
Okay, great. Somebody is suggesting that they ask their doctor for a referral to an SSDI disability attorney. So that's another way if the doctor happens to know somebody, that's a good suggestion. Another question is, my mom is 74 and already collecting her state-funded pensions. Are there any more benefits we should pursue after her MSA diagnosis?
There's state-funded benefits.
Pension, yeah, pension.
Okay, well, I don't know. If somebody has if they worked for the state, they may or may not have Social Security, federal Social Security. Often people who work for the state do not pay into Social Security and don't have a Social Security retirement benefit, but they may have it if they were married through their spouse. So you should definitely inquire of Social Security whether or not the person has a retirement benefit. Individual states may offer special programs for individuals with MSA, but as I said, that's an individual state issue. Those are about the only benefits that I would be aware of. Okay.
So keep asking your questions. We do have a few more minutes. We have plenty of time to answer more questions. One of the questions I had, Glenn, is you talked a little bit about COBRA health insurance coverage and the very important piece of information that it will stay in place for the 29-month period until somebody gets their Medicare. And I just wanted to know if you could very briefly explain what COBRA is for people who may not be totally familiar. And also, does it vary state by state, or is that 29-month period applicable to everyone?
Well, COBRA is a federal program. I don't even remember what COBRA stands for. It's the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act.
Great.
But basically, it deals with when you leave employment and you had employment, excuse me, you had health insurance through your employment. It's a mechanism of allowing you to keep that insurance in force. COBRA's been around for a long time, and it was much more relevant prior to the ACA, or more popularly known Obamacare. So that if somebody was working and had health coverage and then wanted to start their own business, but they had maybe a medical condition that didn't leave them insurable, it allowed them to continue to receive their health insurance. The way COBRA works is you get the exact same coverage you received as an employee, but you have to pay 102% of the premiums. So if, let's say, the premium was $1,000 a month and you were paying half and your employer pays half, now you're paying $1,020 a month for yourself. These days with Obamacare, it sometimes is cheaper to go into the private market and purchase insurance that way. You cannot be denied because of a pre-existing condition such as MSA. One thing I might talk about is if you've got an HMO, but you have the option to switch to a PPO with a condition like MSA, I would highly recommend it. While HMOs can be wonderfully adequate for the average person, someone with a condition such as MSA may not be getting the same kind of treatment they would get if they have a PPO. I'm out in California. We have Kaiser. That is a fine system for the average person. They're not going to be having specialists who know about MSA, and they're not going to be likely to want to refer people out to specialists because they have to pay for it, and they don't like doing that.
So is it difficult to switch from an HMO to a PPO?
Well, it's not difficult, but it can only be done at certain times of the year. There's enrollment periods through employers that allow you to switch, typically once a year. And if you're on COBRA, you can switch when everybody else in the same employer group can switch. You're treated under COBRA just like anybody else who's still working.
That's good to know. So if somebody retires earlier than they planned and they're on COBRA and they figure out that they really want to switch to a PPO, they could do that then. I think that's a really important thing to know for people. So I know you said you are not a specialist in getting Social Security disability, which is a really big issue for people in our community. And my husband and I went through that. And in fact, we came and spoke to Glenn about that because he's a friend. I just wanted to ask you your thoughts on, we do hear about people getting denied Social Security disability, even with MSA. And it definitely happens, and it's not totally uncommon. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to what might be some of the reasons why someone is denied Social Security disability, even though MSA is on the compassionate allowance list and should be something that's approved rather quickly, which in our case it was, and we did it on our own, but my husband and I were both lawyers at the time. But so what do you think might be some of the problems with the application, for instance, if you can speak to that?
Well, as you said at the start, I do not handle Social Security cases. It's a very specialized area of the law. I recommend to people that they hire a Social Security lawyer. They are statutorily required to work on a contingent basis, and they only get paid when you're awarded benefits, and they receive a percentage of your retroactive benefits. Now, as Patricia said, MSA is on a compassionate list. It's supposed to be flagged, and people, I think, are typically guaranteed benefits, or no, not guaranteed. They're awarded benefits rather quickly. There is the exception. So you might want to try on your own. And to answer Patricia's question is, why would somebody be denied? Probably because they or their doctor did not adequately flag the nature of the condition. So, depending upon your financial situation, you might be better off going to a Social Security lawyer and getting them to assist you, because they'll know how to do it properly, and your chances of getting awarded the first time and quickly are probably a fair amount higher.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I have another question here. Is HMO another term for a health advantage plan? Also, please talk about the differences between a health advantage plan and a traditional Medicare Part A and B program.
Oh, I'm going to have to decline. I don't deal with that area of law, so I apologize. Maybe I should explain more. We deal with people who have non-governmental benefits, and when they're denied, it's mostly by private insurance companies, and that's what we deal with. But I do know that a Medicare Advantage plan is, rather than going just through Medicare, you transfer your benefits to an insurance company that administers them. In my experience, you're probably better off sticking with Medicare than a Medicare Advantage plan, because anytime you're dealing with an insurance company, and I will sound cynical because what I do for a living is fight with them, is they're going to try to provide as little in the way of benefits as they can so that they can keep as much of the money as they can. That's how they built all those huge buildings across the country. If you have Medicare, Medicare is not going to deny anything that's covered. An Advantage plan might. Now, there's also a supplement plan that you can purchase that will provide benefits on top of Medicare, and that may be a very good thing to obtain. Now, I don't know if you can do that after you've been diagnosed. I don't have a lot of experience in that area.
Okay, great, thank you. We're closing in on our time here. We did have a comment here. COBRA is expensive. Put the patient on Social Security disability and then United Healthcare if over 62. Did you have any thoughts on that suggestion? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what United Healthcare is.
United Healthcare is just a private, very large insurance conglomerate out of Minnesota. I've been involved in many battles with them. I don't think very highly of them, but I should stop for a second and say, I only see the denials. People don't come to my office and say, hey, you know what? That insurance company was great. They paid all my claims. Will you please sue them? We see when they don't pay. So I don't want to unfairly castigate all insurance companies. But one point I would like to talk about for a second is that Medicare kicks in after you've been receiving Social Security for 24 months. There is a movement, and it should be a very strong movement, that if you're awarded Social Security based on one of these compassionate illnesses, such as MSA, Parkinson's, Lou Gehrig's disease, that Medicare should be instantaneous. It could be somewhat expensive for the government, but I can't think of a better way for them to be spending our money. So write your congressperson, write your senator and say, this is probably more of a benefit than another battleship that would actually help Americans who are in desperate situations. I think it would be a bipartisan move. I can't see anybody who would object to it other than the potential financial cost, but I don't know that it's been thought about. So once again,
yeah, I totally agree with you, Glenn, and we are thinking about it. I am the chair of the coalition's advocacy committee, and that fight is actually on our agenda. We have been starting to look into it, and we will bring everybody a lot more news and opportunities to get involved in that, because I know for personal experience that waiting 2 years is too long. my husband actually passed away a week after he qualified for Medicare. So he got Social Security disability, and then waited the 24 months. So Glenn, we are working on that, and that's something that we're going to be looking to the community to start writing their congressperson and all of that, and we're going to give you a lot more information about that really soon. So we are coming close to the time. I guess I had one more question that I wanted to, it's a little more general. I wanted to see your thoughts on this. Sometimes when people are dealing with MSA and they're, in their 50s or 60s or older, it might be really difficult for them to deal with, getting a diagnosis, the doctor appointments and all that, and also dealing with these things. So can somebody designate maybe an adult child to sort of handle, figuring out all these benefits and in fighting with the insurance companies if it comes to that? And if so, what kind of documents would they need to sign? I'm just thinking about people who need help from maybe an adult child who has more time and more ability to deal with some of these financial, insurance issues. Any thoughts on what they would need to sign or how to set that up?
Sure. With what I deal with, the ERISA statute provides that you can give written authorization to anyone to act on your behalf, be it a child, spouse, sibling, lawyer, and the insurance company or the employer has to deal with that person on your behalf. You can also go on the internet, it really can be a wonderful tool, and just download a durable medical power of attorney. So it gives others the ability to receive information on your behalf, to make appointments, to deal with your medical issues, at least to assist you in dealing with them. It's a good thing to do. Other things I would talk about quickly would be doing some of these things before anybody becomes ill. If you have life insurance, there's a methodology to have premium notices sent to a child, for example, to make sure your coverage doesn't lapse if you forget to pay it, if you've got cognitive issues. In California, for example, the insurance companies, if you have long-term care or life insurance, are statutorily obligated to give you that opportunity, and I would accept it.
Okay, great. Well, we are just about out of time, and I don't see any more questions. But Glenn, I want to thank you so much. This has been incredibly helpful, and I think hopefully everybody found this useful. And if nothing else, at least you sort of have a list of issues to look into and investigate and figure out if you need to speak with an attorney. But this has been really wonderful. And Glenn, thank you for taking your time, and thank you for the work you do for people like the people in our community. So thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the conference.